you'll never be shredded without understanding this. Now, this is something that I've seen with lots of people that I've helped to lose weight, right? I'm talking to them and I'm like, okay, so what have you eaten today? Oh, nothing much, just this and this and this. And I'm on a video call and then I see like they're drinking a Coke and I'm like, oh, I see you got a Coke there. Oh yeah, I was just thirsty. I was just drinking a Coke. And I'm like, okay, did you track the Coke? Oh, no, I didn't track the Coke. And I'm like, okay. And it's just things like that, things you see over and over, right? People just estimating their macros, estimating their calories, right? Like, and they never really make any progress. And that's quite simply because they are not they're not being intentional enough with tracking their calories, right? They'll just look at like, okay, I had some rice, but what they're not keeping into account is that they went over to the pan, right, where the mutton chops or the whatever was cooked in, and they scoop out a bunch of fat, right? They scoop the fat out, the fat sauce at the bottom of the pan, and they pour it out over their rice. And they're like, oh yeah, that I'm not gonna track that. That's not calories, right? But what's funny is if you actually wait till the next morning and you go and look in that mutton pan, right? The fat sauce at the bottom of it turns back into fat, and it's just this chunky, thick layer of fat at the bottom of the pan. And I'm like, would any sane person like cut that up and put that on their food? Like, absolutely not. You just instinctively understand why. You're just like, that's obviously a bad idea. Like, I don't have to explain why. It's literally fat, which is the most calorically dense macronutrient, and you're just taking like pure fat and you're pouring it over your rice. Like, why? And then people cook potatoes in the fat, thinking that that's healthier than fries. I am not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that's worse than fries because the fat is like thicker and it's like sticking to the potato and it like soaks into the potato. And people don't realize that that adds calories, right? People just aren't diligent enough, right? Even things with like mayonnaise, right? They'll take mayonnaise and they'll just put it on their chicken sandwich. And it drives me nuts because they use so much mayonnaise that it's like, that's 300 calories of mayonnaise. You could have had like three extra slices of bread, but instead you just choose to put mayonnaise on the bread. There's countless examples of this, right? If you really want to get shredded, the thing that's going to set you apart from people that don't make it is your diligence, right? So I was doing a cut like last year. I was doing a cut. And I kept falling behind. Like every month I was like, okay, I lost weight this month, but I'm like a kilo behind schedule. And I'd recalculate everything. Boom, 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 boom. I would track everything. And I would literally calculate out exactly how many calories I need to burn every single day, exactly how much food I need to burn every single day. And by this date, in 2 or 3 months, I have to be this weight. And I kept falling behind. Every single month I was like, I'm a kilo behind schedule. I'm a kilo behind schedule. And it kept happening and I couldn't figure out why. And it occurred to me literally a couple weeks ago, like 2 weeks ago, that whenever I was making myself a cup of tea, I was putting a spoon of sugar in. And it's only 15 calories. And I knew that the sugar had calories, but I was like, oh, it's only 15 calories. I don't have to track that. But 15 calories, like 6 to 8 times a day. By the way, drinking tea is an incredible diet hack, but I recommend putting sweeteners instead of actual sugar because it adds up, right? Like 8 times a day, 15 calories, that's like what, 120 calories? And that doesn't sound like much, but 120 calories over 3 months, that's like 3,600 calories, I think. I might be wrong on that. That's half a pound, right? And the other thing is, whenever I would make like a sandwich, whenever I would cook up eggs on toast, I would just track the eggs in the toast. And I put a little bit of ketchup, a little bit of tomato sauce, and I didn't track that because I was like, oh, it's 30 calories, it's 30 calories or whatever. And so all these little things I was missing out on, and I wasn't tracking them because it's like 15 calories, 30 calories, this, whatever. It's not like I'm putting like 3 tablespoons of mayonnaise when I'm supposed to put 1, because even 1 tablespoon of mayonnaise is already 100 calories. And most people use like 3 thinking that it's 1 tablespoon because they don't realize a tablespoon is you take a tablespoon and you make it flat. Like that's a tablespoon. And when you're talking about mayonnaise, that's 100 calories. That's so stupid, right? With tomato sauce, that same like tablespoon is only 20 calories. So I figured, I don't have to track that. But it kept putting me a kilo behind schedule, a kilo behind schedule, a kilo behind schedule. And I didn't get as lean as I wanted to get that summer because I just didn't track the sugar in the tea and I didn't track the tomato sauce, right? So this is if you're trying to get really, really lean. So I've got a full 2-hour course basically just on diet and nutrition and all the autistic steps that you need to track, all kinds of complicated foods to track, because, tracking a home cooked meal, right? It's easy when it's like, okay, there's a piece of meat and there's some peas and there's some mashed potatoes. You could just weigh each part individually and figure it out. But what do you do when the foods are like combined in together? Like when you've got like pastries and baked goods and lasagna and like you can't just weigh all the parts individually. So I've got like a whole ass nutrition course talking about macronutrients and calories and everything. Check it out in the description. It's also, got everything you need to know about training and everything. So check that out. So you have to go through the most autistically weird lengths in order to get where you want to get. If you're trying to get shredded, you have to act like a weirdo because weirdos are the ones that are shredded, right? Normal people are not shredded. So I often hear this criticism of like, that's not normal, right? I give diet advice and that's not normal, And it's like, yeah. Have you seen what normal looks like? I mean, you have to act like an autistic weirdo if you want the results that only autistic weirdos can get, right? There are two types of people that get shredded. It's the absolute like retards of the world that are just dumb enough to muscle through it and just suck up the pain and suck up the hunger and just power through and they get lean and they mog you. And then the other type of person that gets shredded is like the autistic weirdo that is willing to weigh their food, is willing to act like a weirdo, and is willing to resort to weird lengths like I'm about to tell you about. So, I started figuring out some really, really weird diet hacks, right? So whenever I'm making a bowl of cereal, right, I just use like Kellogg's or whatever. It's not high protein. I was eating this like soy protein cereal before, but soy is really, really terrible for your health. I took a couple weeks off from the soy protein cereal, and when I added it back in, just instantly I felt terrible for like 3 days afterwards. Just a single bowl of that soy protein cereal. So yeah, no. So I just switched to Kellogg's. Which is also not the best because it doesn't have a lot of protein or anything. But I got so autistic with it. I take 1 spoon of sugar, put it on the Kellogg's, and I literally just put water, right? Because with milk, you're adding like 120 extra calories. Right? This is only when I'm cutting. When I'm bulking, I just eat whatever I want. But when I'm cutting, I put water on the Kellogg's. You got to be autistic like that. When I'm making sandwiches, instead of being like a normal person and getting normal person results, like, making 2 peanut butter sandwiches and enjoying the peanut butter sandwiches, I figured, you know what? Each peanut butter sandwich is about, 80 calories coming from peanut butter. And that's if you use an actual tablespoon, like 15 grams of peanut butter. Most people use like 30 grams. So they get like 160 calories worth of just peanut butter on top of their 2 slices of bread. So they can literally eat 2 extra slices of bread if they just swap the peanut butter for something with basically 0 calories. So what I started doing is instead of 2 peanut butter sandwiches, I started taking ketchup, like tomato sauce, right? And I would spread it really, really thin over like the 2 slices, over like, like I would spread it over the bread. And what that would allow me to do is it would let me fit in 2 extra slices for the same amount of calories as the 2 peanut butter sandwiches. So instead of 2 peanut butter sandwiches, I'm out here in the middle of the night, friggin' midnight, just eating like 3 ketchup sandwiches. And is that optimal for gains? Absolutely not, right? But you know what? Realistically, not everyone can just eat like a kilo of salmon and like 12 organic pasture-raised eggs and then just do a bit of cardio and that's their cutting diet, right? In the real world, currently, my situation is not at such a point yet where I could just eat like grass-fed, free roam, like organic, like steak or whatever, I'm not just eating, ribeyes and T-bones and everything all day. So you have to make work in the real world, and sometimes that means doing autistic nonsense like eating 3 ketchup sandwiches instead of 2 peanut butter sandwiches because it's the same amount of calories and it allows you to be just full enough so that you can actually go to sleep so you can wake up the next day, right? Yeah, and just general tips I would recommend for a cutting process like that is you generally want to just eat the same meals every day. Eat the same meals at the same time every day, right? So for lunch, it's 4 eggs on toast, right? Track the ketchup or just use very, very little of it. And, dinner is whatever mom cooks up, right? Some potatoes, some rice, some meat. We're good to go. That's generally about 400 calories. And then I save the rest of the calories. So generally I'm up to 1100 calories by dinner. And then the other 900 calories, because I'm on a 2000 calorie diet at the moment, because I'm trying to get diced, right? The other 900 will just be like random carb nonsense, like bread and cereal, pretty much, right? It's terrible. But you know what? It's worked for me. I don't lose that much muscle on a cut. You gain it back like that in any case. Plus, you're not supposed to get super diced every year and anyway. So if you're interested in like the autistic real world actual ways of getting shredded, not just like, hey everybody, eat like 4 pounds of steak every day and then do a bit of cardio and that's your cutting diet, because like that's not real for most people at the moment currently, right? I recommend getting your money up, right? Get your stuff together. But if you're interested in like the practical, like nitty-gritty autistic diet details and all the nitty-gritty like autistic training details like progressive overload, volume, training intensity, frequency, right? Exercise selection and evolving rep ranges and everything, just check out the link in the description. Just do it. It's like a one-time fee. Most people charge that monthly. I'm charging it one time, so it's literally a no-brainer. Check it out.